Hello, zombie and Walking Dead fans. Welcome to Biters, a weekly podcast devoted to AMC's The Walking Dead, brought to you by Southgate Media Group. I am one of your hosts, Jeff Marsick. I am also the co-host of the Disturbed podcast that's devoted to FX's American Horror Story, which is also a Southgate Media production. When I'm not podcasting about TV shows that I love, I'm a screenwriter and writer of the comic book Z-Girl and the Four Tigers, which is a thrilling adventure story about a heroic female zombie in charge of a unique special ops team composed of the Tigers, who are ancient human hosts of ancient Chinese warrior spirits, and together they fight all manner of monster and demon that are trying to wipe out humanity. If you're interested in a heroic female zombie, come check out our site, www.zgirl.org. Joining me on this podcast is my good friend and artist on Z-Girl, the ever-impressive and wholly underappreciated Kirk Manley.
Hey, how you doing?
So
glad to be a part of this.
Oh, this is going to be fun. So people who are listening who don't know Kirk or unfamiliar with Kirk, he's
are much better off.
That goes for both of us. But no, Kirk is actually a surprising vault of knowledge when it comes to pretty much everything zombies. So I may actually be trying
generous.
to...
You're being very generous.
Well, what'll probably happen is while he's talking, he'll drop some references. I'll have to quick Wikipedia and catch up just to...
We're gonna need a producer. A few more hats.
Yeah. Okay. So Kirk and I talked about how we wanted to approach this podcast, and it seems like a lot of podcasts out there pretty much do a recap beat by beat through the show, and we want to do something a little bit different. And since this is the start of the season, we can pretty much call the shots any way we want. So we decided that we're going to go with we're going to kind of approach our analysis of each episode with a good, bad, and ugly kind of approach. We'll talk about what we each thought was good about the episode, what we thought was bad, which is something that the writers or the show just didn't resonate with us, and then the ugly, which can either be really bad, they just completely missed the mark, or it could be zombie, bloody, gory, ugly, which is, ugly can be good as well. So that's the format that we're pretty much going to go with, and we'll start the discussion there and see where it takes us. And then we'll talk about, do we want to do something like a kill of the week or a zombie of the week, a character spotlight of the week. So we're going to have some fun with this. And just as a quick recap, this past Sunday on the 13th, we saw the premiere season 4 of The Walking Dead with an episode entitled 30 Days Without an Accident. And Kirk, before we get in and talk about this episode, I did some looking into some numbers just to see what kind of juggernaut The Walking Dead is.
Really? You and numbers? I'm surprised.
Yeah, I know, right.
I'm shocked.
Yeah, I know. That's, for people who don't know me, I'm a math geek.
You like stats.
Yes. I like objective data. Anyway, stop picking on me. All
I
right.
like to interpret.
16.1 million viewers. That's up. That's a 30% increase from the.
Wasn't it 12? Wasn't it 12 their highest or something like that?
Yeah, the prior high was the season 3 finale. So
that's awesome.
Okay, but let's put this in perspective. So this was on Sunday night. If you add up all of Sunday night's regular network dramas, we're talking Once Upon a Time, Revenge, Betrayal, The Good Wife, and The Mentalist. That's 5 shows. You add them all up, they still don't have the same number of viewers as The Walking Dead.
That's outstanding.
Now,
awesome.
They're even saying, the producers are also saying that it is, Walking Dead is either just about even, it's really close. They're either just under or just over fall sports telecasts.
Wow.
Which means that NFL football on Sunday night.
So is this the largest grossing TV show in history, or have there been other shows in the past? Do you know?
That's a good question. I'm gonna have to look that up. But I
Get
think
that
it's,
producer on that. I'm just curious because it's just astounding, you know. And I think the other thing that's astounding about it is it just never ends. It steamrolls. It seems to be not leveling off or picking up gradually. It just continues to steamroll and grow larger every single time. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy, and I think that stat when you've got a TV show that's matching NFL football on a Sunday night, that's
Right.
You've got an incredible property.
I wonder if, I mean, I'm sure, obviously the fact of its uniqueness, the fact that it takes risks, the fact that it's presenting subject matter that we've never really seen on television before. Obviously, all of those are factors, zombies being big culturally is a factor, et cetera, et cetera. But I wonder if also what's starting to happen is we're now 3 seasons full in, starting the 4th season. People are actually starting to be attached to some of these characters, just like the comic book. I mean, the reason the comic book has always been so great, in my opinion, is that you become attached to these characters and their daily lives and their relationships with each other, and you don't want something to happen to them, and you know it's going to.
Yeah,
you know,
it's that loss phenomenon that's going on. You know, people that are invested now, they're starting their 4th year of investment in these characters. You know, and they're becoming they're your Sunday night family.
Yeah, and you're kind of, it's kind of like watching, you know, like a train wreck or a car accident. You know the bad stuff is going to happen, and you don't know who it's going to be to. Is it going to be to your favorite? Is it not? You know, how long can they last? It's kind of, you know, so it draws you in every week.
Well, then you have and I don't know what the numbers are. Maybe you do. The numbers on Robert Kirkman's on the comic book. How many they sell? Because you know, those of us that are comic fans, we want to see. You know, is the comic going to match up with the show? You know,
right. I don't know those numbers. We could find those out.
I know it's nowhere near 16 million. So
no. But I wonder if it's on par with some of the top, you know, Marvel or DC titles, you know, in the, you know, 100,000 or something like that. I think it is.
So, like I said,
the only other thing I would say is that, you know, lots of people I've read have reacted negatively to the idea of the expansion of this property, the fact that they're going to do another series, but how could you not? I mean, the audience is telling you. I mean, they're stupid not to. It's saying, look, we want to watch more of this. You know what I mean? So I think it's great. And you know, there's been lots of shows that have had spin-offs. You know, Buffy with Angel and you know, other shows that have had spin-offs from there and run at the same time. You know, and been in the same worlds.
And that's a good point. I think that there's probably some of that's a knee-jerk reflex too, because the number of spin-offs that have worked, there's been how many numbered twice that, 3 times that haven't.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, sure.
So
that's a good point.
I'm kind of on the fence. I'm never a big fan of spin-offs until I actually see the spin-off. So
right.
But
I think the potential for it to be even to be fresh is great because it doesn't have to stick to the book. Right. But at the same time, it's also a potential pitfall because the book was so good that sticking to in fact, the closer they stick to the book, I think the better the show is. So that is one point of fear for me, is that they'll go off in a way that that because it has no roadmap will get lost. But hopefully not. Hopefully not. It sounds like they're going to do something that's completely separate from the current show, in the sense that they'll like pick up somewhere in another part of the world or in the country. I think it would be interesting too if they somehow tied the two together.
Yeah, see, that would be fascinating if you could.
So you could have crossovers and stuff.
Yeah, just think about that. If they did something, say on the West Coast, or they something, I don't know, that took place on a ship in the ocean, you know, in the Atlantic, and they ran that for a season, and the season finale was the two groups kind of getting together. You know, and there's your little crossover. Could be cool. Yeah. Okay, so like I said, the name of the episode was 30 Days Without an Accident. The writer on this episode was Scott Gimple, and the director was Greg Nicotero.
Now, Nicotero started out as doing the makeup, right? Doesn't he doing special effects and makeup? Yeah. And then he started getting involved with directing particular sequences, I think, and then they just moved him right up to director, and he does a pretty good job.
Yeah, yeah. No, I liked I liked what he did with this episode, the directing wise, and the writing. Gimple's been a good add to this show.
Well, his episodes in previous seasons have been some of the strongest ones. I mean, or at least some of the very strong ones. For instance, Clear was probably the standout episode of last season. I believe that was by him.
Right. Yeah. Let's give our overall thoughts. What'd you think of the show overall before we get into the nitty gritty?
Sure. I think overall I enjoyed it. I liked it. I thought it was a good, solid episode. There was a lot of good character development, introducing new characters, establishing the status of the compound at the prison now, and how much has changed in the interim. I didn't feel it was a strong opening season episode. And as I've mentioned to you off the air, that everything now for me in terms of season openers will always be compared to season 3's opening sequence or opening episode, which where they have that totally silent opening sequence of taking the house. They're moving together as a team.
Yeah.
They don't even need to speak. It was an amazing piece of television, I thought. And then finding the prison and all that they had to go through to take that prison, and then Herschel getting bit and losing his leg, and the convicts. I mean, that was probably my favorite episode of the entire series to date. So I always compare to that. So in terms of this being a season opener, it felt a little slow in that regard, but overall it was a solid episode for me.
Yeah, we had talked about this earlier before we started the podcast, just kind of comparing notes, and we had said, I agreed with you that it started a little slow, and the scene later on when the team, I call them a team, but when the group goes out to...
You're thinking of Ziegler on the Four Tigers.
well, come on.
Ziegler would be great in this world, I'll tell you.
Well, when Michonne comes in on the horse and she pulls those comics out and gives them to Carl, I totally wanted them to... Could you imagine Z-Girl being like the top of the stack that he got?
That crazy lady, you put Z's gear on her and clean her up a little bit. She put some blue paint on her. She'd be perfect.
Hey, maybe we could. Yeah, she could be a cosplayer at the next Comic-Con.
Sounds good to me.
But we talked about how if we had moved the scene with the
big spot sequence
at the store. Move that to the front of the episode, and then moved, Mr. Green Jeans scene with Rick. Move that.
I like
back a little bit.
You were making comparisons about ways that they open up Breaking Bad episodes, and I totally agree. I think if they moved the big spot to the sequence to the beginning, had it start with them like either already in there or just entering, so you just come on board in the middle of this mission, you're caught up right in the action, what's going to happen, and then all of a sudden it just starts raining zombies, and they're in the middle of total chaos and horror, and then boom, you cut to or you come back from the break and you start with the story where we started originally with Rick in the farm, and then work your way back up to that sequence. So
I can't be the only one who saw that scene and heard "It's Raining Men" in the back of my head.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's I've seen a lot of posts online with people putting up that video. I'll tell you another quick thing. I was going to wait until we talked a little bit more about the big spot sequence, but since you brought it up now, given the way that it was done, there was only one other thing that it was a little hard to take that they would be falling down in different areas of the roof and have not done that before. But perhaps if they had all congregated after the trooper came down or the pilot and he was hanging, then it would have made more sense if they all collapsed at once. But it's still, I think it still was pretty powerful and pretty wild. I love how they try to keep coming up with new, exciting, different ways to show a zombie, attack situation and get creative about that. It helps keep it fresh. But the way the show was done, if they had just had that happen but not shown us the helicopter on the roof first, I think it would have even been more of a WTF moment, you know what I mean? If like all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they're in the middle of conversation, zombies just start falling on their heads, you know what I mean?
That's true, yeah.
And then after they're in the middle of it, you could cut to the roof and show this is, why, It would have been more of a Lost treatment or a Breaking Bad kind of style or approach.
Or even like you said, the zombies are falling through the ceiling, and then when the camera pulls back, you see the roof starting to cave, and there's that helicopter, and then you cut to commercial.
Right.
So you're left with
what's going to happen? A cliffhanger.
Yeah. So I guess I didn't give my 2 cents on the episode.
Go ahead.
I thought it was good. I thought it was. It could have been better, but I thought it was. When I write and when I look at things like the shows like this, I want to be in the middle of the action from the start. So I would have sped it up a little bit. But the things I liked about this were the new characters that we're seeing from the new group that are in. It was kind of like, again, going back to the comic reading, you're seeing these characters and you're running through that Rolodex in your head. Wait, is this somebody I saw in the comic? And you're trying to draw those parallels. Did we ever hear, either offline through interviews or stuff, how much time is supposed to have been passed between the siege at the prison and where they are now?
I want to say 3 months. I don't know if I read that somewhere or if I saw it online or something. I don't know, but 3 months is what sticks in my head.
Okay, that was the number.
But very little sticks in my head, so I don't know how much credit you can take for that.
Yeah, that Alzheimer's, man.
Yeah, it's getting bad. What's your name again?
One of the things that was really telling to me in this, and again, I think the 3 months sticks in my head as well as the amount of time gone by, but the closeness that this group has. When Michonne shows up, she's less icy towards Rick and the gang. Yeah. They're almost there's a friendliness, a little playfulness amongst them. And one of the things that really stuck out was Daryl, and how just as the group is about to head out to go get supplies, and they exchanges a couple words with Rick, and then reaches out and pats him on the arm, or gives him a bro pat on the stomach or something. It was very atypical Daryl, but it just showed I like that this group is cohesive now, and even later when they were at the store, and Zach, who was trying to figure out what Daryl was in a prior life, and when he said to Daryl that you were a undercover homicide detective, and then Michonne just kind of laughs like, you're right. And just the look between Daryl and her it's just a nice dynamic. I like how they're coming together now.
Yeah, and I loved her line too, which was when the zombies show up at the window. She says, "So you want to do this, detectives?"
Yeah,
which was great,
Yeah.
No, I agree with you. That kind of comes back to one of the probably my good in terms of the good, bad, and ugly, which is that the show did a lot better job in this episode of showing as opposed to telling. And, I think those are great examples that you just pointed out of that, because, Daryl's just non-verbal communication of touching Rick said 10 times more than if we had a scene with Carol and Daryl, and Daryl saying, "Oh, I'm really growing close to Rick, and Rick's a great guy," and it's like just how they would have been handled many times in the past. Same thing with Michonne, with the fact that there was a lot of issue about the coldness between her and them, and the fact that she wasn't warming up to them, and rather than all this discussion about that, how that resolved itself, or did whatever, we just see it. We just she just reacts different. They act different to her. Boom, we know this is where their relationship is at now. We don't have to be told that. Much smoother, and I that's got to be Gimple. It's just better storytelling. It's a better way to do it.
Yeah, and I like how there were little things dangled that we're going to kind of figure out as the season goes on. One of the things that stuck in my head was when Carol was doing reading in the library, and there was that guy there. There was another adult, and then as soon as he's like, "All right, I'm out of here. And he checks out. It's story time's over, and now we're going to discuss cutlery. And she pulls out all the blades and, starts talking with the kids. And
right.
I thought that was interesting, and why Carl reacted the way he did when she said, "Don't tell your dad," I thought was interesting.
Well, I think he's torn. He's starting to get back to being a kid. Did you notice he didn't have his father's hat on through the episode?
Oh yeah, that's right.
And he's reading comic books. So I think he's starting to calm down, to get settled, to start to feel comfortable enough that he can start to take his father's direction to, hey, be a kid. You know what I mean? And
like that scene in the beginning when Rick told him about reading time, and Carl's like, "Oh, that's for kids." And
right. And he's like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
Hello. So I think then he goes to do it. He finally is kind of like, "Yeah, I do want to hang out with other kids, and I do want to do what they're doing." And he shows up, and what's he run into? He runs into her pulling out knives, teaching them how to kill. And it's just kind of slam, The more I thought about it, the more comfortable I felt with how that handled. When I saw it, I agree. When I saw it, I was like, that was thinking kind of, I wish he had supported what she was doing,
right.
As opposed to running from it. But I think it was more, they were trying to show that he's in total conflict about where he needs to stand and how he needs to be in this new world.
Yeah.
In one sense, he's getting told to be a kid, and the reality is, you gotta be pretty damn grown up and pretty damn fast.
Yeah.
In terms, since you brought up that Carol's like quickly becoming like my favorite character.
Oh, she was great.
She was always a drag in the very beginning, and then it got better and better. And now, her relationship with Daryl is a riot. I think that, she's a realist, and she tells it like it is. Even like when in last season when she was setting, what's the guy's name? That the other convict with the blonde hair and the mustache. Can't remember his name.
The one that we thought was going to be a serial killer.
Yeah, the one that he was named after the serial killer. That's right. Anyway, when she thought he was making the move on the young girl, she cut in and said, "Hey, back off." And she's just a real realist and speaks her mind and says it like it is. And there's no bullshit with her, Yeah. And I like, she's like, "All right, sure, I'll do story time. You know what? Here's the deal. You need to know how to kill. Forget stories.
Right.
If you want to survive, you got to know how to kill."
Yeah.
So I like that about her.
Yeah, I like the flirty between Daryl and Carol.
Yeah.
Daryl and Carol.
Yeah.
I was trying to come up with like some kind of Hollywood, combination where you take the two to put together, but they're pretty much already
like Bennifer.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
But I like that flirty interaction between them, and there's something about watching Daryl squirm that's just that's satisfying. Like when the little kid, the younger kid, comes up and is like, "Sir, thank you for killing that deer last week, and can I just shake your hand?"
I felt uncomfortable for him.
I know. I love that. I love seeing him in that situation.
Yeah, you can tell he's not comfortable with it. I think that the rock star treatment for Daryl when he comes out in the morning and meets Carol and the hoots and the hollers and stuff was a tip of the hat from the writers to the fans about how much they're aware that the fans love Daryl and Daryl's a rock star and wink wink. But I think at the same time it also sets up a situation for Daryl to potentially have a lot more loss. They're really, the whole community is, feeling safer with him and pouring all this love on him and everything else. I would not be surprised if Daryl ends up filling the comic book version's Tyrese role. And that, I could see a potential down the road where, Michonne figures out where the governor is, and her and Daryl go out to get him, and they get captured, and then the governor shows up at the prison with a tank, cuts off Daryl's head, and then blows up the prison.
Well, that's interesting because I guess it's because I've been trained by Breaking Bad, so I don't think that there's any line that's throwaway. Maybe there are, and I'm just reading into it. But at the end, when Daryl's with Beth and she says, "What's wrong?" and he said, I'm just tired of losing people. Yeah, that might tie into what you're saying.
Yeah.
Kind of like a foreshadowing right there.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I also just realized we should probably I don't know how you want to handle spoilers. Like, we're not doing spoilers on the show, obviously, because we don't know. We're just theorizing. But in terms of the comic book, I just did a spoiler, so we probably need to at least say, before I say something like that, I'll say this is a spoiler for for the comic book. If you're not up to speed at the comic book at this point, skip ahead. So
Yeah.
sorry
Okay.
about that, people. If you're listening, we'll try to do better at that first time.
So that was your good.
Well, yeah, my main good is the fact that there was so many better. It was so much better in terms of showing instead of telling. Another example I wanted to get in and mention to you earlier was about the council, the governing council that they have set up now at the prison. They made reference to it a couple times about how they voted and that they want Rick to go out with a gun when he goes out and all these kinds of things. But in seasons past, we might have gotten 2 episodes where we were seeing how the council was formed and all the infighting about the politics of the council and yada yada yada. And it's like, we don't need that. You know what I mean? We just needed to know that this is how they're set up now, because they're a larger group of people and they need some sort of governing system, and that's it. That's all we needed to know. So anyway,
And doesn't it entice you when you hear, hey, there's a council? Wait, so how is this thing formed, and how are you?
Sure, as opposed to just telling you.
Right.
Yeah. So that's my good for the whole episode, is a lot more showing and not as much telling.
So what's your take on Rick going outside the wire without a gun?
Well, probably it all kind of comes back to, well, not all back to, but it ties in with finding the gun earlier. I don't know, did we talk about that already, or did we talk about that when we talked together?
Yeah, that was us earlier.
Well, when he finds the gun in the beginning, to me it was symbolic. When he digs it up and he's hoeing in the garden, and there's all these zombies surrounding him, and he's blocking them out with ear plugs, and he comes across this gun, and I think it was just a visual way of saying, no matter how much you till the soil, how much you become a farmer, how much you put down roots, how much you work the land, you are always going to end up having to come back to a gun and killing and fighting, and that the horror will always find its way to you in this new world. And I think that
was deep, man. That was deep.
And I think his going out without it is kind of trying to get back to a normal life. He wants his son to start reading comics and go back to hanging out with other kids and stop wearing his hat and trying to be a big adult. He wants everybody to raise a farm and start eating and normally and not have to worry about where the food's going to come. And he wants to get back to normal life. And but the reality is, and luckily the council saw, the world is not ever going to be back to the way it was.
Yeah, especially when you see the hordes lining up against the fence, and they're getting deeper and deeper. Yeah, for me, I couldn't quite figure out if that was the first indication, another indication that Rick's maybe I don't know. I couldn't quite figure it out. Of course, the first thing I thought of was that he's got a suicidal bent, but I don't know. Your theory sounds good though.
Yeah, I don't think it's suicidal, but I think it is. The guy almost completely went over the edge, and I think there's no coincidence with the fact that in this episode we also meet the crazy lady, and that whole sequence with him and her, because that was just again another mirror of where he could have ended up if he had slipped over the edge. And of course, then they make reference to coming back. Do you think we ever come back from becoming these killing machines or killing monsters, that we almost become as bad as them in that regard? And so I think that the episode was about his effort to try and get stabilized, to not be crazy anymore, to get back to normal life, and the world around him, the zombies piling up, the guns popping up out of the ground, the crazy lady, it's all saying to him, it's not working. You're not going to lead a normal life.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the crazy lady. Her name is Carrie Condon. She's Irish actually, and
she was very good.
She was very good. That's actually my good for this episode. There's we talked about the interaction with the core group, and
Right.
I really like that. But I really liked her, and we both talked about this before, that maybe her whole involvement on the show was probably a little too long. It could have been shortened a little bit. But I like that, as you brought up, that she was kind of a reflection of Rick. She was a mirror, and he got
Right.
to see
Right.
what he could be. I loved how she was a fantastic actress, number one, but just the tragedy that she held inside her, and what
Yeah.
she had to endure, and what she had back at that base camp was just
Right.
it was shades of The Governor with his daughter. And,
Yeah, exactly.
and I remember seeing the first time you saw that in the comic book, or when you saw it in the show with the governor and his daughter. I know there's some people who thought that was just really just a sign of insanity, and just, oh, that's just crazy. And I defy anybody who has a loved one out there who might still, I mean, they're still alive in some sense, right? That you wouldn't at least entertain the thought of, keeping that person, just in case there's somehow a cure arrives, or there's
Right.
a way to change them back.
Right.
So that character was it was a very tragic scene. Actually, one of the things that came out of that scene too, which I don't think it ever gets talked about when you talk about Walking Dead, but was when she died, the music that played, it was fantastic. I mean, it just sealed that whole, just the gravity of that whole moment.
Right. Also, I think the way she did it too was just clear. She was slipping away.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? There was just a slipping, slow, gradual slip away. It was very dramatic, yeah. When I saw her at first, I got all excited because I thought that I'd heard on the internet and articles and everything about this supposed increased threat that the producers had felt that the zombies were starting to become a little bit too easy to deal with, so that they're talking about how they're going to ramp that up a little bit, and somehow there was going to be some more intensity to that, or some sort of new threat to them. And I thought maybe that this was going to be it. That she was going to be some form of semi-conscious, or a calculating, aware zombie. That's probably just me projecting Z-Girl and the Four Tigers onto this. But I think they did that on purpose, because the way she looked, with the soot all over her and everything else. I mean, she really, and the way she sat down on her knees, just ready to go right at that carcass. I think they were trying to make you and they did it. They did a successful job. I agree with you. The sequence was too long. There was too many of them. I think there was 3 sequences with her. I think it could have been done in 2, and it would have been more effective. But I think that it was so creepy. You just didn't know. You knew that this wasn't going to end well. You knew he was being drawn into a trap. They did a little bit of too much symbolism, I think, with like the spider at the opening of the second act. It was like, okay, he's this fly in her web, and blah blah blah. It was almost a little too literal. But I was hoping it would go that way. But I think it was, obviously that wasn't their intention.
I was right there with you when she first shows up, and she comes running up to that boar that's laying on the ground, and she's just this mass that comes up, and Rick's just like, yeah, not here, and he's like backing up, and then she turns around and she speaks. And looking the way she did, I thought that was going to be the next big thing. Okay, so we've got the good. What did you?
Well, wait a minute. Before we move on from that, since you brought that sequence up, there's an interesting thing I saw posted on Geek Tyrant, which is a site I go to all the time.
Love Geek Tyrant.
Listeners
we
should check it out if you haven't seen that. It's a good site. Anyway, they'd put up a post that someone had gone back and dug through season 3 and found that one of the conversations that Rick has on the phone in his psychosis with Jim, I think it was Jim on the phone, the guy, the voice was the actor Jim, and from season 1, and he says very similar, the 3 questions. I don't think it's the full 3 questions, but mainly the question is, have you killed anyone? Have you killed any people? And he has to recount that to him. He has to say, yeah, there was the two guys in this bar, and they were going for their weapons, and then there was this person, I had no choice, and then the phone caller hangs up on him. And it was kind of, again, I don't know if it was intentional, whether they did that on purpose, whether it was just a mistake, or not a mistake, but a coincidence. But I tend to think that that's where his questions came from. And again, that ties in the whole his fear of falling back into his psychosis, that he's going to lose his mind again, that he could become this woman again, and then that he's using these questions to allow people to come in to join their crew, that he actually got from this conversation with.
That would be cool if that was true. Really, yeah. Okay, so what's your bad?
I think basically we talked about it already. My bad was just that I thought that as a season opener it was a little slow. That the way that the action was constructed into the episode, to me, wasn't as impactful or as exciting as if they had moved it around. They didn't have to change it. They just could have. I just thought in terms of where it was. We talked about it, if it had been at the beginning and at the top, it would have sucked you right in, and then you would have been dying to find out, how they got in that situation and how they were going to get out of it, and you would have been thinking about that while you're watching, all the lead up to it. So I guess just in terms of bad, it would just be that the way it was structured with the action, it made it kind of a slow episode in that regard as a season opener,
Yeah.
For me.
I actually have, I'm going to cheat. I have actually two. One is while the zombies coming through the roof at the store was cool, it got a little much at a certain point. One or two zombies come. Once they heard the noise, the zombies would have herded up and kind of moved towards the center. And yeah, one or two or three or four will come through the roof. But then there's going to come a point where just that whole roof is just going to cave in, and you're suddenly be standing there, with zombies all around you, and then the helicopter left. So I thought the zombies keep falling on my head little music video they had there, or lack of music. I thought that was a little. It just got a little long, a little cheesy. The other thing I didn't like was Zach. I think they telegraphed from the beginning that Zach was going to be the episode's resident, the red shirt from Star Trek. This guy was going to eat it, and I was sad to see that. I kind of was hoping I was going to be wrong about that. But that actually ties. I wasn't surprised. Were you surprised at the end with Beth's reaction when Daryl told her that?
No, not at all. They foreshadowed that when he tried to say goodbye to her, and she wouldn't say goodbye. She's steeled herself. When he goes out on a run like that there's just as much chance that he won't come back. And she was prepared for that. So to me, it was really dramatic when she has that conversation with Daryl, because and the fact that she says, I just don't cry anymore. It was sad. It was sad, and it was very dramatic. And then I thought, it was cool that in that sequence is when you see the sign that the episode is named after.
Days Without an Accident.
And she changes it to 0. And
I like that.
It was just a great sequence.
Yeah,
I thought it was a really well written sequence. I just want to come back to Zach because you brought him up. I really liked him.
I did too.
I thought, first of all, he reminded me of Jeremy Renner. Is that the right pronunciation?
Jeremy Renner?
Renner, yeah. I thought it reminded me of him. He seemed, totally, adjusted to the group and fit right in.
Yep.
They were comfortable with him. Him and Daryl, it wasn't uncomfortable. He was obviously a good actor because it just felt like, it clicked. And I was like, psych, I like this guy. He's a little flip. He's a little, he's loose. I like it. And sure enough, boom, he's killed in like the first 20 minutes. So I was a little disappointed. I noted, just as a note, they introduced 4 new characters, right? There was where's my notes? There was Zach, there was the crazy lady, there was Bob, and what was the 4th one?
The woman at the fence, right? That was with
Karen.
Tyrese?
No. Who's the other one? Oh, and the kid.
Oh, the kid, right?
The kid with the glasses. And they killed all of them except Bob.
Yeah.
I thought, wow, that's pretty gutsy, I mean, it's like, in some ways it was kind of caught me off guard, because it was like they've introduced new people, like at the prison, when they first take the prison, the convicts, and they introduced these new guys, and they went 1, maybe 2 episodes and then they took out Tiny, I think, and then 3 episodes or 4 episodes, and then they took out the other guy when they raided the governor's town. So I was kind of conditioned, okay, they're going to introduce these new guys, and they might be the red shirts, but we're going to get a couple episodes to meet them. And boom, they're all gone. Except for Bob. Which, it just, I liked Bob. I thought Bob was played well. I think that actor did a great job. I loved the scene with him wanting to come on the road trip, and Tyrese's sister, who, by the way, I thought did a great job. Small part, but I really believed she was a take charge kind of lady, and no bullshit. And I totally, man, that just felt right. And I loved, he's like, man, you're a tough lady to convince. It was good. It was a good exchange between them.
Well, I see Bob on there, and my first reaction is it's D'Angelo Barksdale from The Wire.
Yeah, from The Wire, right? Yeah.
So I keep
well,
now
Tyrese.
Yeah. So now we've got 2 Wire alum on Walking Dead. Let's see how many more we can get. I'm waiting for Bubbles to show up.
The Wire is actually on my list of must-see. I have not watched it yet, I have to say.
Oh, my gosh.
I know. Lenny tells me we have a mutual friend, Lenny, who tells me all the time it's the best TV there is. And you've told me that too. You've said it's like between that and Breaking Bad. But I don't know, what do you think of the whole drinking thing with Bob? That to me was kind of like, so what? You're in the middle of a zombie apocalypse, so you got a drinking problem. Who cares?
Yeah.
But at the same time, at least they didn't have a whole big dialogue about it and some confrontation with somebody where they talk about it. They just showed this guy's got an addiction issue. And then I think, again, in a very symbolic, foreshadowing way, he's the one, as a result of this addiction issue, because he has to take the bottle down, look at it, decide, even though he goes to put it back, because he's setting it on this thing that's been soaked by the water that was dripping down from above, which was, again, great. They didn't have to show a rainstorm prior. Right. They just showed that it was already wet and dripping, so everything's rotted. And then it all falls down, and all the freaking zombies start raining. And it's like he basically brought that on because of his alcoholism.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was well done, but to me it was kind of like, I guess they needed something or some way to show the his vulnerable point or his weakness.
Well, they had to do something to kill Zach.
Yeah, right.
All right, so what's your ugly?
Yeah, I think the raining zombies, I think, is my ugly, but I'm looking at it in the opposite way as you. I think that it's ugly in the sense of being freaking so cool. Was it believable? No. But sometimes you got to let go because, we're watching a show about zombies. So, that's not believable either. So, I'm willing to give some. And I just think it's great that they try so hard to come up with new ways, almost every episode, to show the horror, to show zombies attacking in a different way or being killed in a different way, and they're very creative about that. And this was a really creative attempt. Maybe they didn't execute it perfectly. I think physics would say that once the paratrooper fell through, they would gravitate to that hole, and then the weight of them would bring the whole thing down, and it would have been one big clump of zombies. But for me, it was a really cool, wild way to do it, and I enjoyed it.
Well, for me, my ugly comes from, mine is also an ugly cool. It comes from that same scene. It was that zombie who came through the ceiling and got impaled by his dangling intestines. I thought that was, you see people get hung up in trees on their parachute harnesses. Right. This guy's hung up by his, his duodenum.
And also the zombies that were so decomposed that when they hit the ground, they exploded like a water balloon.
Yeah. Yeah,
that was awesome.
So let's see. Now we got our three categories. Got the kill of the week, our zombie of the week, and our character of the week. I'm going to go first with the kill of the week. My kill of the week has to be, I thought it was hysterical. It's the zombie, it's that poor son of a gun who's just shuffling up to the door when they decide to go out to go shopping. And he gets, and the door opens up, and he gets impaled, and he's like, just hang on this thing. And all the other shufflers come up, and he looks over, and he's got this look on his face like, brother, give the zombie a hand,
At one point, you could tell he just tries to sit up, and he can't, and then he just kind of sits back, resigned, like, oh shit, all right, I'm stuck here. Yeah, that was a good one. That was a really good one. I don't know I think that or the exploding zombies on the floor, or the one hanging from the helicopter is probably my two favorite zombies of the week.
Well, how creepy would it have been if that when Bob was underneath underneath the liquor cabinet, and that one zombie comes crawling up to him with the foot that's barely attached. It's just kind of like dangling.
That was hilarious. Well,
and Bob reaches out. I thought he was just going to kill him by just sticking his hand in there and just pulling his brain out or doing something. That would have been
melon ball him. I thought he was going to melon ball him. And it would have made sense too, because supposedly he's a medic, right? Medic. So it would have made sense. He would have been, hey, I got to get in and get that brain out. But I think they were just trying to show that no matter how he tried to stop it, the skin slid right off, and the thing was coming for him either way.
Yeah.
So the dangling leg was hilarious. For the zombie kill of the week, for me it wasn't just one zombie. It was all those zombies on the fence getting killed. It was a powerful scene. I thought that kind of almost again the hopelessness and that sense of dread that things, though better on the inside than they've ever been, with gardens and food and shelter and people and normalcy, on the outside things were gearing up and things are getting worse, and dread is on their doorstep, and the killing of them. What a brutal way to have to, when you're in the middle of a firefight, or you're trying to escape a bunch of zombies and you're slicing heads off and hitting them in the head with hammers and trying to, but to just go down there and meticulously have to constantly chop holes in their heads and pump, swords through and pop their heads out. Just gruesome, Well, and it was hilarious when Tyrese comes down, and I guess him and Karen are an item now. Go Tyrese. and he says that he can't handle killing the zombies like that anymore. Where's my note on this? And then he says he's going to go out on the run. And so then he gets back from the run after Zach gets killed, and it's raining zombies, the zombie storm. And he says to her, he doesn't like going out there either.
Yeah.
I thought that was great.
Well, I when Tyrese first tells her that he doesn't like killing them against the fence, at first that didn't sit well with me. But then the more I thought about it, the more you can understand it. If you're doing that every single day, I mean, it's like you said, it's just dead and killing, and that's all you're doing over and over and over again. Yeah, that's gotta wear on you. It reminds me of stories about snipers who, right. After a certain number of kills, because they're watching it through a scope, it wears on you. It's not for us as viewers, we're kind of like, oh yeah, it's a video game. You just go pop, 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 and just keep poking zombies in the head.
Again, they did a great job, visualizing and showing. I mean, she walks up to him and is talking with him, and she's got on this apron that's covered.
Yeah.
And blood is all over her neck.
Yep.
And her face and everything else. And it's just like, that just said it right there. That's what it is. You're up in their faces, spewing out their brains, and it's going everywhere. It's disgusting. It's like a slaughterhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally understood why Tyrese wouldn't want anything to do with that. I wouldn't either.
My zombie of the week is I don't know what his name. I don't think he was named, but my zombie of the week is the one that was at the fence, and every time Rick looked over, he had it was almost like he had inverted eyes.
Yeah. He was very key. I think he was a very important framing for the story.
Yeah.
Because they show him at the beginning, and you're like, whoa, that is messed up. And then at the end, when the kid collapses, obviously sick, the whole pig storyline, there's obviously swine flu is breaking out, some sort of swine flu is breaking out, and his eyes looked like that zombie's eyes. Yeah. And then they come back to that with the closer at the end with that, and it was kind of like, this is a new scenario, a new situation, and it's at your doorstep. Yeah. I don't know what it's going to be. I mean, obviously, I think they did a good job again. Again, I come back to, and again, it's got to be Gimple, just the fantastic job of showing, not telling, and that is, the idea of the swine flu is so much more believable when you see Rick get up in the morning. Does he take a shower? No. He splashes water on his face. Mm-hmm. Then he goes and works with the pigs. Michonne gives him a razor. Clean yourself up, Daryl's getting ready to shake the kid's hand, and he licks every finger and then shakes his hand. The woman he meets in the woods is covered in soot and grime. This is a dirty, germ-infested, disgusting world. And they're in the prison now with animals.
You would survive all of about 10 seconds.
Absolutely. I would be like, first stop, CVS.
For people who don't know Kirk, he bathes in that hand gel.
I own stock in Purell. Yes, I'm a bit of a germaphobe. That comes from having kids and
oh my gosh, yes.
And they're just big germ factories.
Walking petri dishes.
Yes. So I guess it'll be interesting to see what happens. But I guess that my question is, does the swine flu, obviously that zombie or zombies like that have brought that disease to the camp, I'm assuming, and the pig got it first, and now it's jumped to the human with the kid in the shower. The question is it going to make for a different kind of zombie? Obviously it looks a little different. I can't imagine why that they would go to the trouble to have it look different if it wasn't going to also be different a little bit, so that you could identify, oh my God, this is one of those type of zombies,
Right.
Maybe they're going to be more fierce. Maybe they're going to be a little bit more agile, or also they'll just be newer, I guess.
They're going to become bounders like World War Z.
But, they're going to be zombies that have just died from that virus.
Right.
So they would be, think about it. Now, how long have we been in this world? A year? The zombies are getting much more decayed. They're getting easier to deal. Look, the skin slides off his head when he pushes them away. We said, like Bob in the big spot. They're mushy. These zombies are not going to be mushy.
Right.
These zombies are going to be trouble. You know what I mean? This is like day one again.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And these guys are not ready for day one.
No. Well, especially now that they've got they've got a zombie inside the perimeter now.
Right. And he'll, my guess is he'll tear through a bunch of people before they even find out that it's going on. You know?
All right. So, we got one more thing, which is our character of the week. I'm going with Zach, and the actor Kyle Gallner.
He did a good job.
Did a fantastic job. Kyle, we're sad to see you go because we thought your character was a great addition to the show.
Yeah, I agree.
How about you?
I think character of the week, I think I'm going to go with the crazy lady. I think she just,
really?
Because she sold that for me. I really thought we were seeing a new kind of zombie. And she sold that. Even when she was walking and talking with him. And, she's a little ahead of him, and she's looking back all weird, and there, this is not going to go well. And it was just like, I was still convinced that this, or not convinced, but, thinking this is a possible way that this is going to go. She had me sold,
Yeah.
I thought she did a great job.
I think that little Irish, the little Irish lilt to her voice kind of added something haunting to because she spoke kind of slow and just
right, exactly. But again, that to me was like maybe her brain works a little differently.
Exactly.
What I mean?
Yeah. All right. Any closing arguments?
There were a couple other things. Like, what'd you think of the Glenn and Maggie sequence? And the whole pregnant thing.
I like the strength that Maggie has. I still think that Glenn is still too hangdog and mousy. I get his apprehension of bringing a kid in the world, everything that they've seen, and with Lori, it didn't bother me. It didn't bother me too much. I just want more personality to come out of Glenn. I want him to be. Again, I'm comparing him to the comic book where he's such a great character, and I want more of that.
Yeah, I think I agree, and it's hard to know if it's the actor or the writing. I suspect it's the writing that they've kind of lost their way with Glenn, and I know that he was kind of the hero of the show for a lot of the audience, especially the female audience, is my understanding. Before Daryl kind of became that.
Yeah,
but. And I agree with you. I don't think they've handled him really that well. But I thought, at first, I really didn't like the whole, allusion to the fact that she might be pregnant. And I felt like, again, it was kind of like some forced drama and everything else. Then I got thinking about it. Spoiler for anybody who hasn't read the comic. So if you don't want to be spoiling the comic.
Earmuffs.
Yeah, time to zip forward. But they may be setting up or foreshadowing her as taking the role of Laurie in the comic book, and that maybe she's going to get pregnant and die during the invasion by the governor, as Laurie did in the comic.
Yeah.
I think that, just like we were talking about how Daryl may switch places with Tyrese, Maggie may switch places with Laurie.
Yeah.
Know what I'm saying? And that might be a foreshadowing of that, because she said, "Well, we could," and he's like, "No, we can't. We don't want to do that." And she's like, "Well, why not?" So she's obviously on board and wants to, consider that or do that maybe. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that be a development in the story. One other thing I wanted to point out was I thought maybe the nerd getting sick when Carol took out the knives was a foreshadowing of him being the serial killer from the comic book. Like maybe seeing the knives sparked his crazy and that he couldn't take it and he had to get out of there. But obviously that's not the case.
I want more out of Herschel too than to just be the resident Yoda and the wise man, or Ben Kenobi maybe.
It's hard. He's the guy can't get around. He's
but we can get more out of him.
Again, spoiler alert. Maybe he's going to get even slower after he loses that other leg to the cannibals. Spoiler alert for comic book readers. The couple other quick things. No way was there that much stuff left in that big spot. No way. Especially since it was a military station.
Oh, yeah.
No way.
There wouldn't have been a bottle of booze there.
No way. There wouldn't have been anything on those shelves.
Yeah.
Nothing. I liked how they had Carl repeating his father's instructions about naming the animals.
Yep.
Don't name the zombies. I thought that was, again, a really cool little tip of the hat there, or nice writing.
Circle of life.
Exactly. It goes around.
But I think also then that is that Carl's learning from his dad. So for so long he's been kind of rebellious and trying to do his own thing. But now he's starting to listen to Dad.
That's an excellent point, because at the end of last season he was challenging his dad.
Yep.
He was actually saying to his dad, you're doing it wrong. I'm not, I don't want to follow the way you do. I shot that kid because I had to shoot that kid in last season. And remember, he takes the star, his sheriff's star, and throws it on the ground. So no, that's an excellent point. I think, again, they were just trying to show that he's starting to get back into being Rick's son and listening to him and respecting him. Yeah, that's a good point. Do we want to do we talked about giving the episode a rating of headshots.
That's right.
1 out of 5.
So Kirk and I are going to we've come up with our own rating system. We're going to rate each episode on a headshot scale. So on a scale of 0 to 5.
I've vacillated between suggesting that to you and suggesting from Zombieland Double Tap. Remember, I don't know what rule it was. Rule number 2, always double tap.
Right.
I thought that was great.
I think headshots will work.
Headshot's good.
All right, go ahead.
I think I'd give it, out of 5, I'd give it a 3.
Okay.
Maybe a little harsh, but I would have liked a little bit more pace to it.
This is an interesting twist here for people who don't know Kirk and I. I'm usually the one who's very difficult and objective, and it all goes back to, like we said in the beginning, I'm a math geek. But I'm going to go with a 4. I'm going to give it a 4.
Excellent.
I thought it was good. The problems I had with it were minor, but I'm going to give it 4 headshots out of 5.
Awesome.
All right.
Okay.
Well, everybody who has listened to this podcast, thank you very much. You can find out more about prior episodes of Biters as well as Disturbed on the website www.southgatemedia.com. zgirlgroup.com, and you can find out more about Z-Girl and the Four Tigers, as well as Kirk's incredible artwork on www.zgirl.org. Kirk and I are going to sign off. We will see you next week when we will talk about the second episode of the season.
Excellent. Thanks so much, and I look forward to doing this next week.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.